the word for you today. Today is Thursday, October 24th, and our devotion is titled Live by Obedience, Not Emotion. Our scripture passage comes out of the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 6. And our scripture passage says, "When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it." Verse 7 continues and says, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." The fall is intense. It's a lot of very heavy implications that I don't fully understand. But what I do know is that we believe that the fall is what allowed sin to enter this world. Now, it's easy to play the blame game, blame Adam or blame Eve, and I get it. However, I don't think that's what we should do. When I read Genesis, one of the things I'm reminded of is that in every situation, I should be able to put myself in their shoes, in the shoes of the person who does wrong, and realize that I am just as likely to take that action. Except I have the grace and the guidance of the Spirit. I think when we read Genesis, we are to remember that without the Spirit's guidance, without Christ's guidance, we are just as likely to make these mistakes and these sinful actions and to make these decisions that we look back with hindsight and say, why would you do that? The best example I have of this comes earlier in the book, earlier in this chapter. When the serpent speaks to Eve, the serpent says, questions the rule, the prohibition against eating of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And Eve replies and says that God said we cannot eat the fruit and we cannot touch the tree, or else we will die. Now, I don't know if you remember in chapter 2, but when God placed the man in the garden, when God placed humanity in the garden, the rule was don't eat from this tree. God never said anything about touching the tree. So you may be asking, where did that come from? We don't know. We don't know. A very popular interpretation among Jewish circles is that as an extra protection, Adam instructed Eve to not touch the tree as an additional safeguard to keep her from sinning. It's an interpretation. It's not in the text, so it's not something that we can say with 100% accuracy. But for the sake of this, I want to go with that. Let's act like Adam was the one who told Eve, don't touch the tree either. Well, now we've got a problem. Because when Eve touches the tree, she doesn't die. And so now she's wondering, what else about this am I wrong on? So you may be wondering, Mason, what does this mean? Why are you saying this? When Eve said, we can't touch it, I think it was done out of a place of genuine belief. And so because of that, it created a weak spot. Because that genuine belief wasn't true. Eve didn't hear God instruct against eating the fruit of the tree. So we know that she had to have been told by Adam. But with Adam seemingly adding to God's command, he's lessened it. He says, in a sense, that what God outlined wasn't sufficient. It wasn't just sufficient for God to say, don't eat from the tree. Adam felt the need to add more to it. And by adding more to it, he took away its impact. He took away its immediacy. When we talk about Jesus, when we talk about faith, when we talk about the rules that we live by. I think it's really easy for us to say, well, I don't want to risk sinning, so I'm going to add this additional safeguard. And if you do that, amazing. I'm glad that you care so much about living justly and living rightly, that you want to be extra careful. But we have to be careful about treating our safeguards as God's scripture. When we say that God demands something and it's not in the Bible and it's not found in the text, what we do is we let our emotions get in the way of obedience. We are saying that what God said, what God outlined wasn't enough, and we have to add to that. And what that does is that weakens our position overall. This is a hard devotional. It's something that I'm guilty of. It's easy for me to say, oh, I don't want to do something bad, so I'm going to add these extra regulations. And personally, it works. But I have to be careful when I start teaching what God says, to not be teaching my regulations. So in your life, how you act, how you react to God, take account. Take account of what beliefs you have that are found in the scriptures. What prohibitions, what actions you believe are sinful and why. What actions you believe are good and holy and why. And then see if there are beliefs that you have to support those. And when you talk about Jesus, when you talk about God, keep in mind which beliefs are rooted in the truth of God and which ones are rooted in protecting that truth. God doesn't have to be defended by us. And sometimes it's hard because you want to, because he's important, because God is important to us. But God doesn't have to be defended by us. And I think that this devotion today is a great reminder of that. Have a nice day.